So good to see you again, pet. I wanted to give you some time to adjust to your new quarters before we spoke again. I think it's important that you have a place that feels safe for you, given how drastically your life has just changed. Oh, that's close enough. I want to make sure that I keep control. You're not bleeding anymore, but I can't get the memory out of my head. I can smell you even from here, and if the scent gets too much stronger, well, who knows what I might do. Don't worry, I have a full belly tonight. My thralls are very generous with their blood, so I can hold out. Speaking of which, are you getting along with the thralls? They've always been sweethearts to me, but I have no idea how they react to new people, given that there hasn't really ever been any. No troubles, I hope. Oh, that's lovely. I'm so glad everyone's getting along. Now, as for why you're here, to begin with, I think I'd like to get to know you better. We're strangers for now, and that just won't do. We need to be familiar with each other if we're going to live together, don't you think? So, why don't you tell me something about yourself? Anything at all. Oh, a little flustered, dear. That's all right. I did put you on the spot, didn't I? Let's be more specific then. How about your favorite food? Ah, so lovely. It's been so long since I've last tasted that. I see you have excellent taste. Well, you obviously already know my favorite food. But once upon a time, I was also very fond of peaches. Fitting, isn't it? What else? You mentioned before that you were traveling when you went across my home. Did you travel often? What is your favorite place that you visited? Oh, it sounds wonderful. I'd love to go someday. Travel is difficult for me, thanks to my weakness to sunlight, but I have ways I can manage the trip, I'm sure. But I didn't only summon you to ask you questions. I imagine that by now, you must be terribly curious about me and this place. So, I wanted to provide a little bit of an explanation. Would that be alright with you, pet? Good. Well, to begin, this castle and this kingdom is mine. I didn't just happen upon it and claim it as my own, though. I inherited it. It's relatively empty and run down now, but it was once the center of a vibrant, prosperous kingdom, and I was its queen. This was before I became a vampire, of course, though I was still lycanthrope back then, but that's a story for another time. It was such a lovely place back then. We were famed for our artisans. Kingdoms from all around would trade our expertly crafted goods. People especially loved our wine. I can't take full credit for our prosperity, of course. My royal ancestors put so much work into building us up from a tiny nation with very little land to a major trade hub. And of course, I always felt that we had uncommonly skilled citizens. We were so blessed. But I did my very best as queen to continue our growth. We were always improving, always expanding, peacefully, mind you. I'm not the type to declare war just for land. But we were also a nation very in tune with our roots. We had vast stretches of forest set aside for the walls, a beloved symbol of our kingdom since before our earliest records. There were struggles here and there, of course, tensions between innovation and tradition, disputes with other nations. We did have some natural disasters that drained the treasury, but we were always able to overcome somehow. It seems silly now, but a part of me had come to genuinely believe that destiny favored us. That as long as we kept our eyes forwards and our feet planted firmly, we would never fall. But that is not how the world works. No matter how successful, industrious, or righteous a nation is, they're never invincible. There are forces out there that are simply beyond the power of mortals to stand against. I learnt that lesson quickly, and the vampire lord rose to power. Vampires weren't unheard of, as I'm sure you all know, but they usually lived as individuals, separated, so they could better hide from those who would hunt them. The vampire lord was audacious enough to gather vampires together and form an army. What an army it was. You see, vampires have some key weaknesses, but they also have many profound strengths. We could never have anticipated how powerful a vampiric army could be. They swept through the continent, conquering and pillaging as they went. I have no doubt that you've heard about the legends. The most frightening thing about them wasn't their strength, though. It was their motivation. They weren't looking for land or political power. They wanted food, mortal blood. They would flood a nation and feed on anyone they could catch. Blessedly, only the most powerful vampires could make more vampires, or else there likely would be no more mortals left in this world. As you can surely guess, they inevitably came for us, and I believed that we were ready for them. We weren't a warlike kingdom, but we had a respectable army full of valiant soldiers. The most valiant soldiers I have ever seen. But it simply wasn't enough. They washed over our kingdom, crashed against our defensive lines like mighty waves. In a matter of weeks, we had been pushed back to this very palace, our last line of defense. I myself fought in that last desperate battle. The vampire lord himself faced me. For a little while, I truly believe that we had a chance. There are few creatures better suited to fight a vampire than a lycanthrope, and I'm not merely boasting when I say that I am a particularly powerful one. But he had far more experience with bloodshed than I did. He defeated me, drained me of my blood in front of my people. Hundreds of my subjects were carried away, never to be seen again. I was, and still am, dead. The survivors entombed me in the royal crypt, the very same one we met in, and then they left. They left. Our kingdom was in ruins, and there was no one left to rebuild. They couldn't have known that I'd wake again. Not even the vampire lord would have guessed. He hadn't intended to turn me into a vampire. But the lycanthropic side strengthened me enough to survive being drained of my blood. And so, I awoke in the crypt as a vampire wolf, all alone. It's been 500 long years since then. Even after all that time, it's been difficult adjusting to my new form. My vampiric, my lycanthropic sides, they don't exactly get along. I won't say that I've been lonely, though. My little thralls, they've been living and hiding in the forest all this time, tending to the wolves, it seems. And not long after the battle, they began exploring the ruins of the castle, and they found me. And we've lived together since, and they've been ever so helpful. But I do miss my subjects. I miss watching my kingdom grow and prosper. Most of all, I miss the sunlight. Oh, I wish my story was a happier one, I really do. But you deserve to hear it, regardless. A person ought to know the history of their new home, and of the person who has claimed them for herself. It's only right, you see. Oh, I must say, I am so glad that you're here, Pet. 500 years is a long, long time to be doing the same things every day. You don't know how much it means to me to have somebody new in my life. I think you're going to breathe new life into this place. Maybe bring a little bit of its old vitality back. The thralls are already a little bit more rambunctious than usual, which I just love. Is there anything you need to make this castle feel more like home, Pet? There are limits to what I can provide, but if it's in my power, I'll do it for you. It's the very least I can do, after all. Of course. That's no trouble at all. Pet, could you come and stand beside me? Yes, I know. I believe I'm composed enough to keep myself under control for now, though. If we're going to live under the same roof, we can't always be staying 10 steps apart. I'm fine. It's so tempting, but after sharing my past with you, I think it's become easier to remember that you are a person, not a food source. I'm certain this will only get easier with time. Still, I think perhaps it's about time that you return to your room. Best we don't push our luck. Oh, but before you go, I have a little gift for you. Thralls, if you would. Very good. I had my thralls gather a few items of clothing from around the palace. They're quite old, of course, but time has been kind to them. They've mostly been protected from the elements, so they're still in good condition, and my dear thralls even patched them up a little bit where necessary. And best of all, I think they'll suit you quite well. I think you'll look positively darling in them. I hope to see you wearing them next time I summon you. Until then, my dear pet, good night then.